For years, I've been fascinated by the idea that there are vast, hidden, underground cities in America, not small caves. We're talking sprawling cities like the size of Phoenix, intentionally built and hidden in plain sight. Massive cities miles under the ground in Colorado, Alabama, Nevada, and more. Insiders have confirmed to us here at Redacted sophisticated military infrastructure, interconnected transportation systems, UFO, reverse engineering programs, all of it. Jump rooms, and more. We've spoken to experts here at Redacted about these structures and cities, and we put together this comprehensive collection of interviews about what's really hidden underneath America, including Washington, D.C. I hope you'll sit back and enjoy these interviews, and thank you for subscribing. Enjoy. Imagine standing on an ordinary street in America, cars passing by, people walking their dogs, a normal day by all standards. But what if I told you that beneath your feet, sometimes thousands of feet below, exist entire cities, underground complexes that could house thousands of people, equipped with hospitals, power plants, food supplies to last for years. Cities hidden from the public, designed to survive anything from nuclear war to natural disasters. Some are known, some are classified, and some might not exist at all. Hey everyone, I'm Clayton Morris. Thank you so much for subscribing. You know, I've been wanting to do this story for a long time. I've been fascinated about America's underground cities since childhood. The idea that there would be massive, huge, I'm talking like New York City level cities underground somewhere that we don't even know about. But even growing up in the state of Pennsylvania, hearing the stories about Centralia, which was a city that's burning from underneath, because the coal vein that ran through, a fire broke out and it's impossible to ever put it out. This city will just collapse in utter ruin. People that had homes there in the 1950s and 60s just finding out that they can't live there anymore because the entire city is on fire, but not from above, underneath. So I've loved and been fascinated by America's hidden underground cities since childhood. And the truth is, America has been digging for decades, creating a subterranean world that most citizens will never see, from proven government bunkers to controversial deep underground military bases. We're going deeper than ever before. Stay with me for the next 30 minutes. What you learn by the end might change how you see the ground beneath your feet. Welcome to the Redacted Files, where we explore the stories hidden between fact and fiction. And today, we're going underground. America's fascination with subterranean construction began in earnest during the Cold War. As nuclear tensions escalated with the Soviet Union, the United States government realized that survival might depend on going deep, very deep. What started as simple fallout shelters evolved into sophisticated underground complexes designed to ensure government continuity even after a devastating attack. But as declassified documents reveal more about these underground facilities, they raise as many questions as they answer. How many exist? What's their true purpose? And are there connections between them that we're not being told about? So let's dig into the evidence. Let's start with what we know for certain. America has several massive underground facilities that have been acknowledged by the government. Perhaps the most famous is the North American Aerospace Defense Command, or NORAD, which is buried inside Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. Constructed in the 1960s, this underground complex was designed to withstand a direct nuclear strike, and it's built in the middle of the country on purpose. The facility consists of 15 three-story buildings mounted on springs that would absorb the shock of a nuclear blast. These buildings sit inside a massive cavern carved from solid granite. During the height of the Cold War, over 1,800 personnel worked inside the mountain on a daily basis. Can you imagine? Inside of a mountain, 1,800 people? Monitoring for potential Soviet attacks. That's what they did all day long. While NORAD's operations have partially relocated to Peterson Air Force Base, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex remains operational as an alternative command center, ready to activate in moments of crisis. Less than 30 miles from Washington, D.C. sits another underground marvel, the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, sometimes called Site R, or the Underground Pentagon. Built inside a mountain near the Pennsylvania-Maryland border, this 650,000 square foot facility serves as an emergency operations center for the Department of Defense. Now, construction began in earnest back in 1951, and like the NORAD complex, it was designed to withstand a nuclear apocalypse. So only the elites would survive. You and I would be vaporized. Now, inside Raven Rock are all the necessities for running military operations: communication centers, conference rooms, and a self-contained power system. The facility can support about 1,400 people for an extended period of time, allowing military leadership to maintain command and control even if Washington, D.C. is totally destroyed. Though many details remain classified, we know that Raven Rock continues to be maintained and upgraded as part of America's continuity of government plans. In the case that the President of the United States and his entire cabinet is wiped away, who would run things? It would be the military. Perhaps even more critical to government survival is Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center in Virginia. This underground complex would serve as the evacuation site for the highest level of civilian and military officials in case of a national disaster. It would house the president, house the Supreme Court, and other key leadership. Mount Weather is operated by FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, and features underground offices, has full dormitories, a full hospital, and above ground, the 434-acre facility includes training areas, a fire station, and even an entire police force. What's particularly interesting about Mount Weather is how it's designed to function as a genuine underground city. It has reservoirs for fresh water, power plant with multiple backup generators, advanced air filtration systems. There are even dormitories that could house hundreds of officials. And during the 9/11 attacks, guess what? Many congressional leaders were evacuated to Mount Weather, demonstrating its continued importance in emergency planning. One lesser-known facility is the Greenbrier Bunker in West Virginia, a place that I know well. I spent a lot of time in West Virginia as a young reporter in Bluefield, West Virginia. For decades, this massive bunker lay hidden beneath the luxurious Greenbrier Resort, unknown to the public, until it was exposed by the Washington Post in 1992. It was built during the Eisenhower administration, and its 112,000 square foot facility was intended to house all 535 members of Congress in the event of a nuclear war. Perhaps most fascinating was its cover. The facility was hidden right in plain sight, and that's my point. How many of these exist that are sitting in plain sight? It was designed and disguised as an exhibition hall and maintenance area for the resort. Government staff posed as TV repairmen, regularly maintaining the bunker's equipment while pretending to be servicing the hotel's televisions. After its exposure, the bunker was decommissioned and is now open for tours, one of the few such facilities accessible to the public. These known facilities represent just the tip of the iceberg. We all know about these. Declassified documents suggest dozens of similar installations were constructed across the United States, many of which remain operational and classified. What's particularly noteworthy is how these aren't merely bunkers. They're fully functioning underground cities designed for long-term occupation and governance. The question is, how many more exist that we have no idea about? If underground cities exist, then logically, there must be ways to reach them quickly, especially in emergencies. This brings us to one of the most persistent claims about America's underground infrastructure: the secret subway systems that are connecting important government facilities all across the United States, never having to jump on the interstate highway system and sit in traffic. We know for certain that Washington, D.C. has an official underground transportation system that's used by government officials. The Senate subway system connects the Capitol building with the Senate office buildings, allowing lawmakers to move quickly between locations without going above ground, dealing with us reporters asking tough questions. This system has been in existence since 1909 and has been gradually expanded and modernized. What's more intriguing is the rumored deeper system, sometimes called the tunnel, that allegedly connects the White House, the Capitol, and various government agencies with escape routes leading out of the city. While officials have never fully confirmed these tunnels' existence, former government employees have occasionally referenced them. For instance, during the Cold War, plans were certainly drafted for emergency evacuation routes. It's reasonable to assume some were constructed. One partially confirmed underground transport system is the one beneath the U.S. Capitol building complex. Now, beyond the known subway system, security protocols include underground evacuation routes, and after the 9/11 attacks, additional security measures were implemented, including improved underground connections between these buildings. Now, these tunnels serve both practical daily functions and emergency escape purposes. More controversial, however, are the claims about a vast underground Maglev train network that connects various deep underground military bases across the country. Yes, a magnetic levitating train that moves at supersonic speeds, just like the ones in China that are above ground that get all the press and fanfare that can travel nearly as fast as a Boeing 757. According to these theories, the United States government has developed high-speed underground trains capable of traveling hundreds of miles per hour through vacuum tunnels. These would theoretically allow for rapid deployment of personnel between facilities spread across the continent. Now, while no evidence proves the existence of such a network, there are some interesting facts to consider. The U.S. government has funded research into these transportation advanced technologies, including maglev systems. Patents exist for various underground high-speed transportation concepts. Additionally, tunnel boring technology has advanced significantly in recent decades, but even look at these old photos. The tunnel boring Air Force machines. Why does the United States Air Force need tunnel boring machines? Air Force? Tunnels? Makes no sense, does it? Well, making the construction of such networks would be far more feasible than ever before by using these types of more advanced equipment. I mean, these photos are decades old. Now, some former military personnel have actually come forward and actually claimed knowledge of these systems. Their accounts, though, of course, remain unverifiable unless I'm able to climb down there myself and see it. Philip Schneider, who claimed to be a former geological engineer engaged in constructing underground bases across the United States, became notorious for his lectures describing an extensive network of underground facilities connected by maglev trains. Now, before his controversial death in 1996, was ruled a suicide, though some dispute this. How many times have we heard that story? Schneider alleged that this subway network could transport people between facilities at speeds up to 1,500 miles an hour. While Schneider's more extreme claims lack corroboration, the concept of connecting underground facilities makes logical sense, right? During a national emergency, rapid and secure transportation between command centers would be crucial. The question isn't whether underground transportation networks exist, we know they do, but rather their extent and their sophistication. How large are they? Interestingly, some of these underground transportation concepts may be moving into the public sphere. Elon Musk's Boring Company aims to create networks of underground tunnels for high-speed transportation. While presented as a private venture, some speculate that it could be building on existing government research or technology. Whether there's any connection remains speculative, but the technological overlap is worth noting, and it's worth also pointing out that Elon Musk is America's basically biggest defense contractor. Take SpaceX, for crying out loud. Look at Starlink, the Boring Company. Makes a lot of sense. Another documented underground transportation system exists beneath Denver International Airport, though its purpose has generated considerable controversy. I had the opportunity to meet a whistleblower who worked at Antarctica's South Pole Station, and he said, "Clayton, are you ever curious about what sits beneath Denver's International Airport? It's a vast, vast underground city." I said, "You got to be kidding me. I live not too far from the airport." He said, "Oh yeah, it's very convenient cover to have trucks going in and out. Oh, they're just there for the airport," when in fact, they're there to support this massive underground city. The airport's automated baggage system runs through a complex network of underground tunnels. What makes this interesting is that the airport was built with an unusually large amount of underground space, much more than seemed necessary for its stated purposes at the time. Why were they doing so much digging? What did they need down there? This combined with strange murals and other unusual features at the airport, in fact, satanic symbols, it's fueled a lot of theories about its possible connection to a larger underground network. Now we venture into more controversial territory. Deep underground military bases, often abbreviated as DUMBs, D-U-M-B-S, These are massive military installations buried hundreds, sometimes thousands of feet below the surface. And unlike the acknowledged facilities we discussed earlier, the full extent of the dumb network remains largely classified if it exists as described. What we do know is that the U.S. military has constructed numerous underground facilities. A 1992 Pentagon report acknowledged the existence of at least 32 deep underground facilities in the United States, with others overseas. The report noted that these facilities were built to withstand nuclear attacks and house sensitive operations. However, it provided few specifics about their locations or their functions. Dulce Base in New Mexico is perhaps the most notorious alleged dumb site. According to theories, it's a multi-level underground facility that's jointly operated by humans and extraterrestrials. These claims originated largely with Paul Benowitz, a businessman, UFO researcher, famous man, Paul Benowitz. He claimed to have intercepted electronic communications from the base in the late 1970s. The theories were further developed by Phil Schneider, who claimed to have helped construct a portion of the facility himself. While there's no definitive evidence that Dulce Base exists as described, the area does have some interesting characteristics. It's relatively close to Los Alamos National Laboratory, which plays a key role in nuclear research. The region also has experienced numerous cattle mutilations, UFO sightings over the decades. The Native Americans who live nearby the base regularly see weird craft exiting the mountain. However, these could be just coincidental or have conventional explanations, like these are all U.S. military craft that travel in unbelievable ways using anti-gravitational capabilities that you and I don't even know about, but the U.S. military does. Maybe it's that. Area 51 in Nevada, while famous for different reasons, of course, also reportedly contains extensive underground facilities. Former employees have described elevators leading to multiple subterranean levels. Given the sensitive nature of the aircraft that's tested there at Area 51, underground hangars and workshops would make strategic sense, allowing aircraft to be developed away from satellite observation or spy planes flying over to see that you're building an SR-71 Blackbird. What lends some credibility to the concept of DUMBs is the acknowledged existence of the Waste Isolation Pilot Plant, WIPP, near Carlsbad, New Mexico. This Department of Energy facility is buried 2,150 feet underground in a salt formation, serves as a repository for radioactive waste. Now, the facility demonstrates the government's capability to construct and maintain large, deep underground installations. Another factor supporting the possibility of extensive underground facilities is the government's continuity of operations, COOP planning. Now, these plans ensure that the government can continue functioning during emergencies. Documents released through the Freedom of Information Act requests confirm that extensive underground facilities form a key part of these continuity plans. However, many details, of course, remain classified for national security reasons. In 1989, Washington Post article titled Doomsday Project described a shadow government that would operate from secure bunkers during a national emergency. The article mentioned a network of approximately 100 underground facilities across the country designed to house different government agencies. The extent of this network has never been fully disclosed, of course. The technology required to build DUMBs certainly exists. The U.S. military and private contractors have developed advanced tunnel boring machines, TBMs, that are capable of cutting through solid rock at impressive rates. These machines can create tunnels up to 40 feet in diameter, like the ones I showed you before from the United States Air Force. What's particularly interesting is that some patents for these machines include methods for melting rock, forming it into tunnel walls, leaving no excavated material to be removed at all, potentially allowing for more secretive construction. What are you going to do with all of this granite that you're pulling out of the ground? Oh, you're not going to use it in countertops, in luxury homes? No, you're just going to melt it down and form the walls like glass. One compelling argument for the existence of DUMBs comes from the black budget allocations. The U.S. government acknowledges spending billions on classified projects each year. In 1997, the Department of Defense admitted to having a $59 billion black budget for classified programs. More recent estimates suggest this figure has grown substantially. That was how many years ago? Could some of this money be funding the construction and maintenance of underground facilities? Oh, yeah, it's certainly possible. Former government officials have occasionally made statements suggesting extensive underground facilities exist. In a 1995 interview, Richard Sauter claimed that there are 131 deep underground military bases in the United States. They've been building these 131 bases day and night, unceasingly, since the early 1940s. The strategic value of underground facilities is undeniable. They offer protection from surveillance, from airstrikes, nuclear attacks, even public oversight. From a military perspective, having such facilities makes perfect sense. The question is how extensive they really are. Beyond military installations, America has another category of underground developments: civilian underground infrastructure and repurposed spaces that form hidden cities beneath our urban centers. New York City's underground exemplifies this perfectly. Beneath the bustling streets lies a complex world of subway tunnels, maintenance passages, abandoned stations. The infamous Freedom Tunnel was named that after a graffiti artist housed an underground homeless community for years before being cleared out in the 1990s. The tunnel, running beneath Riverside Park on Manhattan's Upper West Side, became a legendary example of how underground spaces can be reclaimed by those seeking to live off the grid. Even more fascinating is the network of tunnels beneath New York City's Grand Central Terminal. These include the secretive Track 61, which connected directly to the Waldorf Astoria Hotel and was reportedly used by Franklin Delano Roosevelt to hide his polio from the public when traveling to the city. This private railway track included an elevator large enough for Roosevelt's presidential car, allowing him to be transported directly from the train to the hotel without being seen publicly. Incredible. Similar underground networks exist in Chicago, where freight tunnels constructed in the early 20th century created a 60-mile underground transportation system. Though officially abandoned, urban explorers report that sections remain accessible and have been repurposed for various unofficial uses over the decades. In Seattle, the underground city there presents a unique case. After the Great Seattle Fire in 1889, the city was rebuilt one level higher to address flooding problems, leaving the original street level to become a network of underground passages. Today, parts of this underground city have been restored and offer tours. Other sections, though, remain largely forgotten and closed to the public. Portland, Oregon, features the infamous Shanghai tunnels, the underground passages allegedly used to kidnap men for forced labor on ships in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. The same thing in Savannah, Georgia, the hidden underground areas and layers used by pirates to ferry people off out into the waters. In Portland, though, historians are still debating the extent of Shanghaiing that occurred there. The tunnels themselves exist and connected the basements of numerous businesses to the waterfront. Cold War preparations also created numerous civilian underground shelters. Many government buildings, schools, and hospitals were equipped with fallout shelters designed to protect the population during a nuclear attack. While most have been repurposed or abandoned, some remain intact, forgotten relics of an era that was defined by the constant threat of nuclear annihilation. Maybe more relevant now than even back then. More recently, wealthy preppers and survivalists have created their own underground dwellings. The Survival Condo Project in Kansas converted a decommissioned Atlas missile silo into luxury underground condominiums, with prices starting at $1.5 million. These units offer protection from nuclear attacks, pandemics, other catastrophes. The facility includes amenities like a pool, movie theater, 5-year food supply, essentially creating a self-contained underground city for the wealthy. Underground spaces have also been repurposed for data storage. The Spring Net Underground in Springfield, Missouri uses former limestone mines to house servers that are held in a naturally climate-controlled, secure environment. Similar facilities exist across the country, taking advantage of the natural protection offered by subsurface locations. Now, what makes these civilian underground developments interesting is how they blur the line between acknowledged infrastructure and hidden spaces. Many began as official projects, but will later, abandoned or repurposed. Others operate sort of in a gray area, neither fully public nor completely secret. Together, they form a subterranean layer of American cities that most citizens never see, despite living directly above them, walking right on top of them. Some researchers suggest connections between these civilian tunnels and government underground systems, particularly in major cities like Washington, D.C. and New York. While such connections would make strategic sense for emergency evacuation purposes, Definitive evidence remains elusive. What is certain, though, is that America's underground spaces represent a parallel world, one that exists literally beneath our feet, but remains largely invisible to daily life. Whether repurposed for commerce, shelter, or more clandestine purposes, these spaces remind us that the ground we walk on has depth and history that often goes unnoticed. As we return to the surface, the question remains, just how extensive is America's underground world? We know with certainty that massive government facilities exist beneath mountains and fields across the country. We've confirmed underground transportation networks, from simple subway systems to more elaborate tunnel complexes. The existence of deep military installations seems probable, though their full extent and purposes remain shrouded in secrecy. What is clear is that for decades, America has been digging, creating an underground infrastructure designed to ensure survival, maintain security, and perhaps serve other purposes we can only speculate about. The next time you walk down an ordinary street, remember what might lie thousands of feet below, an entire world of tunnels, bunkers, and underground cities. Some acknowledged, some classified, some perhaps merely rumored. Are these facilities simply prudent national security measures? Or do they suggest preparation for catastrophes the public hasn't been told about just yet? The truth, as always, lies somewhere in the documentation, the testimonies, and perhaps in the earth itself. If you found this journey underground fascinating, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the Redacted Files for more explorations of the hidden world around us. Until next time, keep questioning, guys, because the truth is out there, sometimes buried deep beneath the surface.
Do you think there are other massive, like what we saw at the South Pole Station that they're building, 10 times the size of it is now? Is there one in Nevada? Is there one in Hawaii? Is there one anywhere else in the United States other than South Pole Station?
There can't possibly be anything under the Denver International Airport.
Oh, don't say that. Really? Well, I know. So many people talk about the Denver area and Colorado Springs
They'll eventually stop taking dirt out of the ground from the Denver International Airport, right?
Is that what they're doing?
Have they ever stopped? From the time they started building?
That's true. I don't think they have. And I've heard about the massive tunnel complexes underneath there.
Yeah.
It's a perfect cover. It's a perfect cover to have a massive airport where people are coming in constantly. There's trucks. There's all sorts of, you can just go to work that day.
That airport is one of the furthest airports from the city that it supports that I've ever seen. It's quite a drive from Denver to the Denver airport.
You sound like this is an informed. This is like an informed opinion.
I'm in the trades. I mean, I kind of understand infrastructure, proximities. How challenging it is to, instead of building your airport next to where your infrastructure is, let's just move it way out there because that's easier.
So Denver International Airport. I've heard of massive cave structures, underground tunnels and systems, that massive, huge cities, underground cities. Have you heard similar?
I've absolutely heard that. I don't doubt that at all. I mean, we've all seen these, the United States Air Force tunnel boring equipment. I mean, because that makes sense.
Yeah. We'll drop a picture in here of that, because I remember when I was years ago, 10, 15 years ago, when I first saw these giant Air Force boring machines. Why the hell does the Air Force need massive tunneling equipment? And then Elon Musk launches the Boring Company, to build massive tunnel infrastructure. So what's going on underneath the United States, to me, is one of the most fascinating stories right now, and I want to dive more deeply into it. But besides the Denver International Airport, where do you think we have? We have the Air Force Training Academy in Colorado Springs, Colorado. But other spots that might be of
interest. Montauk, Long Island seems to have a rich history of subterfuge.
Right.
Brookhaven National Labs. Shoreham, Long Island, had the world's only privately owned nuclear power plant.
Dulce, New Mexico.
There you go. I mean, there's so many lists of places that are extremely questionable. One of the things that I've learned in my experience is that a lot of these things are in plain sight and we just don't know. Long Island was very much the hub of the manufacturing of the military industrial equipment for the wartime periods, and they had Nike nuclear-tipped missiles all over Long Island, next to people's homes. Did they tell the locals that's what it was?
Of course. Yeah, of course.
No, they said it's a Air National Guard Reserve training facility.
Yeah. Wow.
So these things, I mean, people have to realize, like, if you want to have a, super secret stuff and you want to staff it, you can't move it out into the middle of nowhere for your enemy to start tracking. Oh, here we have 300 people that go out into the middle of nowhere every day and then go back.
Right.
So you have to cover all of these things. This is engineering plausible deniability for both the population and your enemy.
So it makes sense then, right? They maybe learned their lesson with Area 51. All these people have to go out there on a regular basis. They leave from Las Vegas in those secretive aircraft.
Mm-hmm.
People are tracking them, following them. Mm-hmm. That's a problem.
Right.
And they have to live there on
Mm-hmm.
base for a long time, periods of a long time. Have it at the Denver International Airport where no one's going to notice.
Yeah, people come and go. If you put up barbed wire fences and signs that say super secret facility and you have armed guards working the perimeter, you've just shined a spotlight on the place you're trying to hide.
You're blowing my mind. Next time I go to the Denver International Airport, I'm going to be looking for some secret doors and walking around there.
Well, it's no secret Americans love sushi, my daughters included. And over the last 2 decades, raw fish consumption has exploded. Sushi bars everywhere, grocery stores selling it, gas stations sell it. Millions of people now eat raw fish weekly, but here's a hidden risk most people never think about. Parasites. Yeah, salmon, one of the most popular fish worldwide, but it naturally contains more than 70 parasites. Most of them are tiny, nearly impossible to see them. I'm sure you've seen the videos where people have gone to like Costco and they come home and they let their salmon sit out on the counter for a few hours and suddenly the little white parasites start popping out of the fish. Ugh. But once inside the body, parasites can hide for years while frequently laying eggs before any symptoms appear at all in the body. That's why many physicians are raising awareness about parasite exposure. Our friend of the show, Dr. Peter McCullough, recommends doing a parasite cleanse at least once a year as a preventative measure. The wellness company offers a hard-to-access RX parasite cleanse, USA compound with ivermectin and menbenzidol. Now, ivermectin paralyzes the parasite's nervous system, and then menbenzidol starves them. Each capsule contains 25 milligrams of ivermectin, 250 milligrams of menbenzidol, lab tested for quality. You can now get a more budget-friendly 45 capsule option that costs $250 less, giving you 2 21-day parasite cleanse cycles. It's the same formula as the original, just a smaller quantity. So head right now to twc.health/redacted and use that code redacted to save $35 off plus free shipping. Well, our next guest says that everyone is missing the true intention of Trump locking down Washington, D.C., trying to federalize the police force there and take things over, trying to eradicate crime. He says to pay attention to Trump's words. In yesterday's press release, Trump said, quote, "I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back," end quote. Dr. Michael Salla says everyone is missing the real story here. There is a hidden intent in his press briefing to liberate Washington, D.C. from the satanic forces that have run D.C. since its establishment. And Dr. Salla says it all has to do with the Freemasons that built Washington, D.C. and were infiltrated by dark forces. So to help educate us on this topic and dive deep on this, so many people have been asking, bring up the Masons on a regular basis in our comments feed. Dr. Michael Salla. Michael, it's great to see you again. We haven't seen you in quite a while. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Great to be back.
So can you explain, as we look at this unfinished pentagram here on the show, on this map, can you explain to me, like, first of all, what are we looking at here, and why do you think that this is a deeper move by President Trump to stop these demonic forces in Washington, D.C.?
Well, that dates back to the design of Washington, D.C. by a French architect, Pierre L'Enfant, who was a Freemason. And the Freemasons understood the power of symbols, occult symbols, such as the pentagram, which is a way of being able to create a power vortex for various ceremonies. And so as far as the Freemasons associated with George Washington and Thomas Jefferson were concerned. They thought that this Freemason symbol would kind of like help establish or promote their idea of the new Atlantis, that America was the new Atlantis. It would be a place of high technology, abundance, and show the way for the rest of the planet. But what happened was that the Freemasons were infiltrated at the higher levels, and this is something that I've been able to confirm, that Freemasonry today at the 33-degree level, those that achieve that rank typically have very positive views about Freemasonry and helping establish their goals, their positive goals. But at that level, 33rd degree, they are introduced to the deeper, darker mysteries, and they swear allegiance to these satanic forces. And these satanic forces are connected to extraterrestrial life that many Freemasons at that higher level believe who it was that established the ruling bloodline families going all the way back to Sumeria, Babylon, and so forth. And so these ruling bloodline families, they believe that they are the direct descendants of the gods, or the Anunnaki, the fallen angels, whatever you want to call them, and that those who are worthy of the truth will be initiated into those truths. So that's how they establish secret societies. But it is something that is segregated from the most practitioners of Freemasonry who know nothing about this up until the 33-degree level. And if they progress beyond that, then they're initiated into the kind of satanic practices that are what enables a lot of these ruling bloodline families to get their power and to control the rest of the world.
You know, a lot of people in our chat room are saying you're spot on about this, and there's some really deep, dark forces here with this. A lot of people in our chat room saying that this even goes much higher than sort of like the levels that we know about in Freemasonry. There's like a whole other section of levels inside of this. Maybe you could talk a little bit about that. A number of people in our chat room are saying that.
Yes, well, those that progress beyond the 33-degree level, they are initiated into all of these occult programs dealing with extraterrestrial technology, ancient builder race technologies, and even being a part of these meetings with visiting extraterrestrials. There are both positive and negative extraterrestrials. The US government in the 1950s under the Eisenhower administration made agreements with some of these extraterrestrial races, and they have joint projects. So people who are initiated at those higher Freemasonry levels are part of those classified programs. People call them unacknowledged special access programs, and they will go wherever there's a crashed UFO, wherever an extraterrestrial is captured, wherever they find some ancient technologies, such as in Antarctica and so forth. There'll always be a high-level Freemason there above the 33-degree level who will essentially kind of like take control of the situation. And you have the military, which is merit-based. Obviously, they are also having a very keen interest in all of these technologies and these extraterrestrials that are part of how the planet is governed. And so there's a power struggle between these high-level Freemasons above 33 degree and the military, the rank and file military, who want to take control of these advanced technologies for the betterment of society. And so this power struggle, I think, is what's reflected in what's happening in Washington, D.C. now. I think Trump federalizing police in Washington, D.C. has much more to do than just dealing with criminals, petty crime, homeless vagrants, and so forth in Washington, D.C. This is the move that the White Hats have been waiting for, to finally take out the satanic cults that are in charge of Washington, D.C., and of these deep, dark projects that are all about control of these advanced extraterrestrial technologies. And the pentagram that you showed earlier on vividly demonstrates how this was from the very beginning envisaged by these higher level Freemasons. Now, many critics will say, well, that's not a pentagram, that's something else, because you don't see it joined. You see the line from that one of the lines doesn't extend across to complete the pentagram. Well, actually, in occult circles, this is described as an incomplete or broken pentagram. Now, a pentagram normally is something that you can use to protect yourself from satanic forces, but the broken pentagram is an invitation for satanic forces to come out. And so you have that pentagram immediately above Washington, D.C. And I think this is what the intent was from the very beginning, that at some point Washington, D.C. Would really be subverted from its goal of, or the original intent was to establish the new Atlantis, something positive and hopeful for all humanity. But instead, through the broken pentagram and the establishment of these satanic groups in Washington, D.C., that control the power elite there, it became the center for this very aggressive American imperialism, which we have witnessed all around the world. But I think Donald Trump, he's working with these very positive white hat forces, the Earth Alliance, to take Washington, D.C. back and to remove the satanic groups from the power they hold. And they are very, very dark and very powerful, but they can be removed from power.
Well, we know how deeply dark these satanic forces are in Washington, D.C. I mean, just hear the horror stories, these parties, all sorts of really disgusting stuff that happens in Washington, D.C., whether it's, on the child trafficking side or just these weird parties. It's really deeply disturbing. So based on your research, you know so many of these insiders who've been speaking to members of Congress and other members. Do you believe that Trump is on the side of the white hats with this, and that there is an active movement to try to maybe excommunicate some of these satanic forces in D.C.?
Yeah, totally. We know now that Trump's being briefed about this positive extraterrestrial alliance called the Galactic Federation. We know that from Professor Haim Eshed. David Grush has also said that Trump was briefed. And we also know from an Italian newspaper, Espresso, that said that Trump was briefed about Project Preserve Destiny. And Trump was told by the Galactic Federation that in order for disclosure to happen, in order for all of these advanced technologies to be released and the extraterrestrials to show themselves, that global peace has to be established. And then that's going to enable these advanced technologies to be released. And so to establish global peace, he has to remove the satanic deep state, which is behind all the wars and the imperialism that's been happening under the American flag for many, many decades. And that's what he's trying to do now with all these peace agreements. He's meeting with President Putin on Friday in Alaska. All of that is deeply symbolic about this white hat effort, this effort by Christians, leaders that believe in Christian values and in a positive future for America and for the planet, to come together and to remove these very dark Satanists from power wherever they are. So I think that's really what's happening right now in Washington, D.C. And in order for Trump to succeed and move not just the United States, but the whole planet into this future where we have open contact, then he has to bring about world peace. He has to remove the deep state Satanists from power. And he's using all the resources he has as president, as commander-in-chief to do that. And I think that's what's really happening in Washington, D.C. right now.
Well, I think people need to open their eyes to this for people watching this for the first time, and this is like new information to them. Well, what's really hidden underneath Washington, D.C.? For years, there have been whispers of vast tunnel systems underneath the Capitol, not just for the government use, of course, but for something darker. Now, new reports suggest President Trump's recent moves from federalizing D.C.'s Metro Police to pressuring the Smithsonian to release long-hidden artifacts may be part of a much bigger operation. And so what is the police move actually covering here for federal forces raiding an underground network tied to the deep state? Satanic cults? in DC, even extraterrestrial allies? Yes. So all of the deep state forces that Trump is up against. We wanted to talk about this today with Dr. Michael Salla, author, researcher, one of the leading voices on exopolitics, to help make sense of all of this. Doctor, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me, Clayton.
My pleasure. Now, I think, what's interesting is that last week when we started covering this story, there's been new revelations that have come out since then, in many ways, I think, vindicating some of what you were saying. And so many viewers, we had thousands of people saying, thank you for covering this story, because it doesn't get any attention. So can you talk about what some of these new revelations are that we might have been learning about with the Smithsonian and like the Scottish Rite Temple, et cetera?
Sure. Well, this Smithsonian, that received an executive order, or was the subject of an executive order from President Trump, where there would be an effort to pressure the Smithsonian to release much more of its holdings to be reviewed for release. And that comes on top of what has been really decades of complaints that the Smithsonian, rather than revealing America's history, its ancient history, and the true level of civilization here, has been suppressing and hiding it. And so there have been stories dating all the way back to the 1800s that the Smithsonian, once it is called out to investigate an archaeological finding of any significance, whether we're talking about the discovery of giant skeletons, whether we're talking about the discovery of Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon, and anything to do with say, the mounds, the mounds in Ohio that contain supposedly technologies that go back to the Atlantean era, that the Smithsonian, rather than getting its hands on these artifacts and reviewing them for public release, really just locks them away in vaults. And the place where it's been doing that is in this kind of vast underground tunnel system in the Washington, D.C. area. And the tunnel system dates all the way back to the early 1800s, when Washington, D.C. was being designed as the nation's capital. So they needed a tunnel system so that members of Congress and the executive branch could get around quickly if they needed to. Of course, you had the British invasion in 1812, so that only accelerated things. And you also had a vast aqueduct system that also was responsible for a lot of the underground tunneling in Washington, D.C. On top of that, you also had a underground trolley system that began as early as 1862, and it was until 1962 that the trolley system was finally put to an end. And over the course of that century, they eventually started to build underground tunnels for the trolleys. Now, that was abandoned in 1962, and in late 60s and early 70s, they started to build Washington's metro system. But the tunnels that were used for the trolleys, the underground tunnels, are still there. They're unused. And so, you just have this vast network of tunnels, whether they're built by private entities, whether they're built by federal entities or government agencies, that are throughout the Washington, D.C. area.
And deeply, deeply dark stuff that's happening here, as one of our viewers here on the screen says, deeply being used for like child trafficking, really demonic things down here in these tunnels. And we've heard from different whistleblowers on this. Somebody in the chat was just saying Freemasonry connected to the inverted pentagram on this as well. Maybe we can put that inverted pentagram up here on the screen and take a look at it. Maybe you can recap for our audience that maybe missed this last week. What are we seeing here, and why is this deeply troubling?
Well, the pentagram was something that was part of the architectural design for Washington, D.C. Pierre L'Enfant was a Freemason, and what you see there is an incomplete pentagram. And critics say, well, because it's not a complete pentagram, then it could not have been designed for occult purposes. But actually, a broken pentagram has even more significance, because while a pentagram, a complete pentagram, is a symbol of protection, the broken pentagram that you see there, that's a symbol that welcomes the satanic forces. And what's very interesting is I think I sent you an image that shows the compass at the bottom of the pentagram, and that compass that extends to the U.S. Congress, and that shows that the compass being the symbol of Freemasonry, that was connected to this pentagram. There you go. And what's very interesting here, of course, is that many of the founding fathers were Freemasons, and I think the vast majority of them really did have noble intentions and wanted to make Washington, D.C. a kind of beacon of light and a replacement for Atlantis, like the new Atlantis. But there were very deep, dark, hidden forces that came in and infiltrated. And so you see that in the different lodges in the Washington, D.C. area. And there's the temple, House of the Temple on 16th Street, just near DuPont Circle. And I think I sent you an image of that as well. And that is the headquarters of Scottish Rite Freemasonry 33 degree in the United States, or a very important element of that. And underneath that is supposedly, according to a book titled Weird America and other sources that cite it, remnants of an ancient Atlantean tunnel system. Now, I mean, that sounds pretty far-fetched that you could actually have something as ancient as that. But in fact, I mean, I've been doing work on the underground tunnel system in America, and what typically has been happening, especially when it comes to the development of deep underground military bases, is that they have found a much older tunneling system that dates back to the Atlantean era, and they either kind of repurpose that or they build alongside that. And so I think it's very feasible that underneath Washington, D.C., in addition to this kind of like human-made layer of tunnels, whether they're made for the federal government, for Congress, or for the aqueduct system, or for the trolley car system, that you could have something much, much older, an Atlantean tunnel system. And that's where things get really very interesting, because I think that's where you get probably the deepest, darkest rituals being conducted by those that make it their life or their job to explore and research these tunnels for satanic practices. Because what the Satanists do, and there is an element of Freemasonry. You know, it's very important to say that not all Freemasonry is satanic. It's only those that are above the 33 degree level that are introduced into this kind of like satanic element, where they're told that humans are descendants of gods, and they rely on blood sacrifice, and that they can invoke demons or these draconian reptilians. And so these temples or these lodges are often built on areas that have some kind of energy vortex. And so that's why they actually do a lot of these practices, like satanic rituals, at these energy vortexes, because they know that that's how you can control an area or even an entire planet. And that brings us back to the whole inverted pentagram, because within there, at the different nodes, you're going to have rituals being conducted in underground locations that really ensure that this kind of dark satanic element predominates in Washington.
Well, I sat down last night, had a multi-hour discussion with Timothy Alberino, who's a researcher, and we talked about the giants, and he was telling me, and I didn't realize this, that in the Smithsonian's own documents, they say that they have giant skeletal remains of giants, giant bone fragments, jaw bones that are bigger than my entire head in the Smithsonian. So I'm hoping as part of this audit, members of Congress will sort of piggyback maybe on this, start to put forth some pressure to release all of it. Like, what sort of demonic stuff are they keeping there? What sort of stuff do they have under Washington, D.C.? I think that Trump is onto something with this, and I think you're in many ways vindicated for your position on this. Thank you for being brave and talking out about this. Most of our audience is saying, thank you for talking about this. There's a few people that are like, this is what? I can't even believe this. This sounds crazy. This sounds like total BS. But, some people take a little bit longer to be awakened by this. Well, yet more evidence is growing by the day that the federalization of Washington, D.C. Metro Police by President Trump does, in fact, involve cleaning out the underground satanic networks as well as petty crime and homelessness on the streets. Turns out that, as we've reported on this over the past couple of months here on the show, that these underground satanic tunnels underneath Washington, D.C., and actually members of the House of Representatives have actually called these out, and they've lost their jobs for telling the truth about what's actually down here, what's actually going on underneath D.C. It turns out these satanic networks would compromise public officials by using these underground SRA rituals, thereby impacting the performance of federal institutions, which basically constitutes treason. And Trump knows about it. And the inner circle knows about it. That's why they're doing this. And by the way, the mayor of D.C. just admitted that crime has now plummeted in D.C. thanks to the federalization and the National Guard troops that are in Washington, D.C. Crime has all but disappeared thanks to the U.S. military being there. It's kind of crazy when you think about it. Dr. Michael Salla was the man that broke the story originally. He broke it wide open a number of weeks ago here on our show, and now has more evidence. More evidence is emerging that he was right. In fact, Doctor, welcome back to the show. Great to see you. Oh, it sounds like you're muted, Doc. We good now?
Yes, I was muted, so thanks for having me back.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure. We always have our guests mute their microphones before they join us because we have other guests live on the show, so they might hear like a cat in the background or a dog in the background. So that's us asking you to mute. So thank you. But I do want to bring your attention to this new headline that just came out about military lawyers handling civilian crimes in Washington, D.C. And I think, to your point, this is further evidence that this is exactly, you cannot rely on the Satanists that are running Washington, D.C. to prosecute their own, can you? You need the military to basically step in Washington and now handle the caseload from these people.
Well, that's right. Yes. I mean, what we have here is a situation where these satanic networks have been operating for decades, compromising officials from all branches of government, including the judiciary, which is very, very important, because that means when it comes to the arrest of Satanists that are apprehended in these underground enclaves, which can extend as far as 10 miles underground, in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere around the country, that when it comes to trying these officials, you can't do it through the normal court system because a lot of these judges are compromised themselves. So the normal courts cannot operate. And in such a situation, that's where the military courts come in. And also another consideration for why these Satanists being arrested are being subjected to some kind of military judicial process is that the punishment in the civilian courts for sedition or treason is a maximum of 20 years imprisonment and a fine, or both. Whereas in the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, people that are convicted of sedition, treason are sentenced to death. And now normally the USMJ, that does not apply to civilians unless martial law has been declared, or as in the situation currently in the United States, when normal judicial courts can't function. Now, of course, they can function at a superficial level in dealing with petty crime and so forth, but as far as trying individuals that have been compromised, which includes members of the judiciary, then I think you can make a very strong case that civilian courts should not be trying these because some of the judges themselves may be compromised and may be, in fact, under investigation. So I think that's why the military courts are being secretly used, convened under some kind of special tribunal, and which is why I believe these JAG officers have been summoned to Washington, D.C. to begin helping in the prosecution of so-called petty crime. But I think that's just a cover for these deeper satanic crimes.
That's amazing. And this isn't being reported. I mean, you have JAG officers coming into Washington, D.C. to handle the amount of crime that they're having to now handle outside of the, like, basically the Satanists who are running Washington, D.C. This is an incredible story. PJ Pickett in our chat just said, what's scary about this, but it's like they're like sort of putting it right in our faces. Like they're sort of flaunting this. It's like kind of out there in the open in a lot of ways. And now we actually have the military there to stop it.
Well, yes, the military, I think the only branch where you have officials running it who have been thoroughly screened and vetted and have no real ties to these satanic networks. And so that's why there is this ongoing campaign to clean out the satanic networks, not just in the Washington, D.C. area, but also other areas in the United States where you have the same networks operating, compromising public officials and the judiciary too. So really the civilian courts are not the way to prosecute Satanists who have been apprehended. And the military tribunals that have been, I believe, secretly set up, that's the way to proceed. And really, in terms of giving out justice, I think the justice can only be achieved through these very stringent penalties that you find in the Uniform Code of Military Justice rather than in civilian courts.
And we've been talking about this in terms of the Masonic order, right? And maybe you can educate our audience a little bit if they're new to this or they missed your appearance on our show a couple of weeks ago. Maybe you can lay out sort of the pentagram description and describe just how insidious this is.
Sure, yes. Well, we have an inverted pentagram in the design of Washington, D.C., but it's a broken pentagram, not a intact pentagram. And that actually has more occult significance because it's an invitation for the devil or Satan to come in. And so in the middle of that pentagram, its major axis is on 16th Street, Washington, D.C., and it goes directly from the White House right up 16th Street, and it runs through something called the House of the Temple, which is the center for Scottish Rite Freemasonry in the United States, or at least one of the most important centers for Freemasonry. Now, Freemasonry itself has what is publicly known to be 33-degree levels. So a Mason can progress through doing public works and good deeds all the way up to the 33rd degree, and they can be, as far as they know, part of an organization that promotes philanthropy, and various projects to kind of uplift humanity, deal with poverty, and help the society evolve in a positive direction. But at the 33-degree level, that's where there is a secret initiation into higher levels if you pass a test. And the test is essentially the Freemason is presented a copy of the Bible, and if they desecrate it, as they are asked to do in some way, whether spit on it or something else, then they are told that they have passed the test and that they can now proceed to higher orders. And in those higher orders, 34, 35, and so forth, they are told about the secret extraterrestrial origins of the bloodline ruling families, told about the history of giants, the secrets of the anti-gravity free energy technologies, and so forth. If that Freemason chooses not to spit on the Bible and says, no, I worship this, then they told, you've passed, congratulations, you're a Freemason, 33-degree Freemason for life. And so they go away thinking that, well, hey, they are at the highest level of Freemasonry, but it's not.
So, yeah, the highest levels are demonic. That's crazy. That's crazy to think about. Hopefully this message is getting out there and people are aware that if they get to the 33 and they don't spit on the Bible, that they're hitting a wall, basically. They're not going to go past that. Can you talk about, because for some people who don't know what's going on here in the Satanism in Washington, D.C., it's large and it's been well documented. As you pointed out to me offline, you and I were chatting, you said this was well documented by journalist John DeCamp in his book called The Franklin Cover-Up. What happened here? People might not even know this story that happened in Washington, D.C.
Sure. Well, John DeCamp, he was a journalist and also a state senator for Nebraska, and he uncovered evidence, extensive evidence, that young boys from Boys Town, Nebraska, were being taken to Washington, D.C., and that they were being used in these kind of like honeypot operations against sitting members of Congress or high-level public officials, that whatever happened between those young boys and those public officials were taped, and that those officials were then manipulated or blackmailed into doing whatever it was that these Satanists wanted. Now, these boys were basically well-trained through SRA practices, and that is that they were often subjected to a ceremony where one of them was essentially cannibalized, killed and cannibalized, and they were commanded to eat the heart and so forth, and different body parts, and that's how they would be conditioned to do everything that was asked of them when they were in these kind of honeypot operations against members of Congress. So John DeCamp documented this. I mean, there was clear evidence that this was happening, and no one really kind of pursued what he uncovered.
It's just like Washington, D.C., isn't it? I mean, we've had HHS whistleblowers and others, like Tara Rodas and others, calling out how the Biden administration was facilitating the massive sex trafficking of children. They were literally facilitating it at the Department of Homeland Security. And we had whistleblowers in the federal government calling it out and in front of Congress. And what happened? Nothing. The Biden administration did nothing about it. Fortunately, the Trump administration, and at least under the FBI and Kash Patel, they've been going after these sex traffickers rounding them up by the hundreds. So at least, I'm hopeful anyway about that. That's unbelievable. That's called The Franklin Cover-Up, if anyone wants to read that book by John DeCamp. Any final thoughts on this, Dr. Sala? Like, when you talk about how are we going to see any of these people, these like sort of perp walked, in front of court and proceedings, these people who have been leading a lot of these Satanist rituals and trying to compromise members of Congress and others?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I don't know. I think that the white hats, the Earth militaries, forces that are involved in these kinds of operations, and as far as I know from my sources, they are being helped by positive extraterrestrials as well, because the Satanists themselves, they directly worship these negative extraterrestrials. Some call them Draco reptilians, and so the white hats, they understand the depth of the kind of like corruption and how long it's been going on for. So they're cleaning it out. So right now, Washington, D.C. is the target. I believe that as they move forward and succeed in cleaning out Washington, D.C., that they will start doing the same in other major cities, and we'll probably see the same pattern: National Guard, judge advocate generals coming in to help the district attorney of that area to deal with the so-called petty crime, but really behind the scenes, they're dealing with these Satanists. Now, whether they will reveal that at any time, I don't know. I mean, hopefully they do, but then again, the public really hasn't been prepared for this. I mean, there are films like Eyes Wide Shut, which kind of helps prepare people for the truth of just how deep this corruption goes and how it involves high-level officials. But as far as the general public being prepared, I don't think they really are. So it may well be that the White Hats just kind of keep this all done in secret, and will move ahead with their agenda, which I think is to reveal the truth about many subjects that have been suppressed for a long time, And I think we have a lot to look forward to, because this is actually a major cleanup operation. And once it reaches its end, then life in the United States will be changed forever, and it'll be much easier for the forces of good to really bring about policies that help all Americans prosper and experience abundance.
I hope you're right. I like that. I like the positivity. I'm a glass half full kind of person as well. Protect your children, as someone said in our chat room. These sick people are everywhere, so we need to protect our children. So hopefully, what we're seeing in Washington D.C. right now with this eradication of crime is a template. Maybe we'll see in other places. Dr. Michael Salla, he writes over at exopolitics.org. You can read all of his great works. He's got incredible books as well. Please go to Amazon, check out his books under Dr. Michael Salla on Amazon. I've read many of them. They're just eye-opening, absolutely eye-opening. Great to have you back on the show, as always.
Thanks for having me.
Well, what is Lockheed Martin hiding at their Skunk Works facility in the desert? UFO technology reverse engineered into secret craft that we're not allowed to know about for another 30 years? Anti-gravity propulsion technology? Or a new version of their Tic Tac anti-gravity aircraft, of course, that was spotted famously off the coast of the USS Nimitz, off the pilots off the USS Nimitz, of course, famously testifying before Congress. It's this man-made craft that could travel in ways that humans never could. What is being hidden right now at Skunk Works? Well, Anders Odison decided to find out. He's been sneaking out in the desert near the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works facility, camping out overnight using some incredible night vision technology as well as telephoto lenses to get as close as he possibly can without breaking in the law to try to get images of these secret aircraft. Watch.
I thought I heard a plane circling straight up ahead, and looks like we got a Predator drone. It's been flying circles. I still have service over here, so I was able to pull it up on my ADS-B app too.
Yeah, they're tracking him there, or something. Who knows exactly what they're doing with that craft above his head? Maybe just testing out all sorts of new technologies. Well, Anders joins us now to talk about his experience there. And I watched your videos and just been fascinated about this. So, sometimes people do like clickbaity stuff, not you. Like, you camped out trying to get answers at what's going on at Skunk Works. So thank you so much for joining us here on the show. I was excited to talk with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Clayton. I really appreciate you having me on.
My pleasure. So what was the impetus for you to first start seeing and getting as close as you could to Skunk Works? What rumors had you heard over the years that you wanted answers to?
Well, I guess going back, I've always kind of been fascinated with the idea or the concept that elements within the military or military industrial complex are like 30 to 50 years ahead of the regular public technology-wise. So that's kind of what started my channel, is I really wanted to go out to these sites. You have Area 51, but you also have places like this Lockheed site that are run by private contractors where a lot of this new technology is developed. So I wanted to, I'd seen official press releases from Lockheed of this place, but I had never actually seen somebody go on the ground and just film stuff that happens, whether it's in the day or the night, and just kind of record and see what they can find out there. So I kind of wanted to do that. And this was my second trip out there, actually. I did another one back, and I think it was either February or March of this year. And I brought my night vision gear with me. I brought a really long telephoto lens, and I basically just went up into the hills, all on public land, and recorded whatever I could capture.
So on the screen here, Philip, if you could leave this up here, this is some of the night vision stuff that you were capturing. And we didn't know until the daytime when you woke up the next day what we were looking at. This weird, I guess you call it a pylon. You call it a pylon with something on top of it, which looks like some sort of a craft. It was
so let me
shocking.
kind of break down, so we have the pylon, which what this is for is what's called radar cross-section measurement. So this facility out in the desert, it's called the Helendale Radar Cross-Section Facility, and they constructed this pylon to have a very low, almost invisible radar signature, which aids them in their measurement, because what they're trying to do is they're testing these advanced aircraft and seeing how stealthy they are, seeing how they show up on radar. So what we're looking at here is the night vision footage was, I think, it was definitely a different airframe than what we're looking at in the daytime. The one we're looking at here, it could be, it's really hard to say. I'm not Lockheed Martin, so I'm not entirely sure, but it is some sort of a fuselage, I believe. It could be a model specifically to test like a new stealth material, or it could be like a fuselage with the wings removed of, say, a new drone. Lockheed Martin did recently announce the new Vectis drone. I don't think that's what this is, but it could be something similar. It could just be an airframe designed to test a new particular technology. There's quite a few possibilities.
And what's crazy is you saw this giant pylon like coming out of the ground and then going back into the ground with the aircraft like attached to it. And I was racking my brain. I was talking to a couple of my UFO buddies that we commiserate from time to time about different stories and things. And I'm just curious why this pylon comes out from underneath the ground, from their facility underground, and then sticks straight up in the air. Like, what's the point? Is there some sort of an aerodynamic test point for it? Because you would think you would do that in your facilities underground. I just don't understand why they're sticking this thing up in the air.
Well, I've honestly kind of been fascinated with the way this facility has been constructed. So it has this massive 200-foot deep underground chamber that the pylon is actually stored in. And it does allow them to really quickly extend and retract the aircraft. So they actually store the aircraft underground. But for a lot of the measurement, I'm not the best at scientifically explaining it, but for the radar measurement that they blast the airframe with, it does have to be at least partially above ground. There are some indoor facilities now that do this, but this one, it was built during the Cold War. They kind of designed it to be able to quickly hide it from Soviet spy satellites, which is why it retracts below ground like it does.
So when you've been out there at nighttime, maybe we can play some of the nighttime footage as well. Have you... In the times that you've been there, have you witnessed anything in the air that you just think, wow, if Americans could see this type of technology or the speed with which these things move, they would be shocked? What have you seen while you've been there?
Well, at the Skunk Works facility in particular, I haven't seen anything flying except the drones, like the Reaper drone. I did see, the first time I was out there, a kind of interesting looking drone that was more angular shaped. It wasn't a Reaper. I'm not sure what it was, but it was, it was flying in circles above me, kind of like the Reaper was in this video. When I've been out more towards Nevada, like towards Area 51, when I've been looking through my night vision scope, I can sometimes see some things moving really high altitude that are pretty strange. Like, for example, you'll see something that looks like a satellite. It's moving consistent speed and consistent direction, but then all of a sudden it'll quickly change directions and suddenly it doesn't look like a satellite anymore. So there certainly are things flying around that I think the American public should know about, and we don't. So,
yeah, that was, to be honest with you, hand to the heavens. That's when I witnessed my first UFO that I ever saw. Looking up into the night sky. Natalie and I both saw it because we were both looking. We were checking with each other, like, wait, are we seeing this? And way up there, and just started moving in an unbelievable speed in a box pattern, way up in the sky, just right across the sky, up, then just back down, like traveling in enormous speeds. I figured I'd share that.
That's awesome. I truly believe if anyone who spends enough time looking up at the sky, you're eventually going to notice something unusual because it's up there. So
maybe we can show some of the footage of here. The security trucks. So maybe you can explain like where you are on these mountains here, because we know at Area 51 they have all sorts of ground sensors that if you get near any of the gates, I know from different reporters who've tried to get close, like the sensitivity. I mean, even if it's like they know if it's like a gecko or a prairie dog is moving out there with these ground sensors. So maybe you can talk about some of the security precautions that Lockheed has around this facility, and where exactly is this facility located?
Yeah, so this is, like I said, it's called the Helendale Radar Cross-Section Facility. It's technically located in Helendale, California, which is like a really small, unincorporated part of rural LA County. So it's out in the Mojave Desert. It's pretty remote. You'll have a few houses kind of scattered around out there, but it's far enough from LA to where you're not getting a whole lot of prying eyes on it out there, except people like me. But you got as far as security, they do have they're marked with Lockheed Martin security on the side of the pickups. They drive around the perimeter. I do notice if you drive by the gates or basically anywhere along the fence line, they come out really quick, even if you don't have a direct line of sight to the guard shack. So I do think there is some kind of a road sensor system they have going on, because as you say, at Area 51, they operate those, and I know these kinds of facilities are just as sophisticated, really. I did have some sort of there was a black pickup that came out and was kind of looking at me. I don't know. I think he may have been getting my plates, or some people theorize they may have been like capturing packets from my cell phone. You know, who knows? But they basically just kind of parked in the road next to me for maybe 20 minutes and were just kind of watching me. So I don't know exactly what to make of that, but it was interesting.
So, I mean, not to get in the full realm of speculation, but I think I'll just have a little fun here. What do you think?
I like that.
Yeah. Do you think that there's any advanced off-world technology being held and analyzed, rebuilt, reverse engineered at the Skunk Works facility?
My personal opinion is that probably yes. Now, we're definitely in the realm of speculation. I don't have any direct evidence of that, but I think there's enough credible testimony out there that would suggest that Lockheed Martin is probably one of the companies that would be involved in this. You know, they're the largest U.S. military defense contractor. They're the largest defense contractor in the world. So if it is true that the U.S. government has reverse engineered technology, I would certainly think Lockheed Martin would be one of the companies involved. And I think there's enough whistleblower testimony. You know, you have David Grush, you have Dylan Borland, who just came out. I'm big fans of what they've had to say to Congress, and I look forward to really hearing more. And I think we will hear Lockheed Martin's name come up as these kinds of hearings continue.
You know, not to tell tales out of school, but I'm sure once your videos hit and they became, they're pretty big, have you heard from any whistleblowers? Or you can just shake your head or just wink from any Lockheed Martin individuals who are like wanted to fill you in on some of the stuff that they know about at Lockheed at Skunk Works?
I haven't had anyone reach out, unfortunately, to fill me in. I think it is so compartmentalized and so secretive that people reaching out like that would be taking a pretty considerable risk. I did get a private message from somebody who said they worked for Skunk Works after I published my first video, but they were more just kind of asking like where and when I filmed it, which I don't really know quite what they were getting at with it, if it was like, probing for security reasons or what, but it didn't seem hostile or anything like that. But that was the only message I got directly from a Skunk Works employee. I've had a few high profile people that were either former Air Force test pilots or former civilian employees at some of these kinds of places, like follow me on Instagram and Twitter. So I am hoping that, some of these people are going to start reaching out to me, because I would love to pick their brain and hear what they have to say.
Well, I love the videos. I love what you're doing over at Uncanny Expeditions on YouTube. Give them a follow if you're into this sort of thing, like I am. I think you would really find it fascinating. Check out the series that Anders has done here on the Skunk Works facility. His most recent one was just published about 7 days ago, and that's where we got some of this remarkable footage. Before I let you go, like we're seeing this truck, I just want to keep talking to you. But this flatbed truck with this, airframe that's on it, you watch this truck kind of going back and forth here. And what's remarkable is this truck goes underground. Like this thing is huge. This underground facility must be massive.
Yeah, there's so many theories about this Hellendale facility. It's definitely kind of a cornerstone in UFO, UAP lore, because it has such a large underground component to it. So the pylon that comes up from the facility, it's 200 feet tall, and the facility is 200 feet deep. So you could really hide a lot of things down there. And there's all kinds of speculation out there that there's underground tunnels connecting this to other facilities in the area, Area 51, Edwards Air Force Base. The only way I'd be able to confirm that is if I were able to rent like some ground penetrating radar or something like that. But we do know for a fact that it would be a great place to hide some of this stuff, just because you already have that underground infrastructure there. And as you say, this truck was able to drive down there, and the truck, it fully entered the underground test chamber, and they loaded the model onto it and they drove it right out. So
yeah, and how hot it is and inhospitable. Even in your video, you're talking about how My God, it's just been brutally hot. So
Yeah,
it's just not. It's a great place to hide stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
It's like Walter White in Breaking Bad out in the New Mexico desert. It's a good place to hide
Yeah, it's
stuff.
like the underground laundry facility or whatever he had out there.
Right, exactly. Anders, great to have you here on the show again. The YouTube channel is called Uncanny Expeditions. Check out his latest videos on Skunk Works, and I'm looking forward to your next videos, by the way. Thanks, Anders. Great to have you here.
Yeah, I really appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much for watching Redacted. We'd love for you to subscribe to the channel. It's totally free if you want to follow us or subscribe. And if we brought you any value at all, please consider sharing this video with a friend or a loved one on social media. Thanks so much, and we'll see you next time.